Hello, hello. Welcome to our Wednesday Live. We're chatting today about can my relationship be saved? Now, I'm actually going to issue a challenge to you. I love a challenge. I love a great conversation. And so if you'd like to get in on this conversation, if you're watching live on YouTube or Facebook, be sure to give StreamYard permission so that I can see your comments on the screen that I'm working on. And if you're coming in through Instagram, I have you on my phone, so I'll be watching for your connections there, your comments there. Now, let me just pull up my comments and get myself all ready. So here's the challenge today. This conversation today is kind of inspired by a few conversations I've had recently with people and kind of watching some streams in a few different groups that I belong to about, can I save my relationship? How do I save my relationship? Hey, Mrs. B, thanks for popping in there. And, Nadani, I hope I'm saying that correct. Love it. Thank you for joining me. Now, today, as I was saying, your challenge is to convince me otherwise, and maybe you don't need to convince me otherwise, but I kind of want to have a really good, healthy discussion around, can my relationship be saved? Because if you were to ask me that question, I would 100% without hesitation say yes, absolutely, no doubt in my mind that this relationship can be saved. Do you agree? Would you say that statement to somebody else? What is it in your past that you have been a part of and witnessed and journeyed with that would let you say something so bold and without hesitation? Let me know in the comments below. Okay, so I want to just start out by saying that when people ask the word can, first of all, I think it's the wrong question to ask. And I did just write a blog about this on Monday, and you can read that blog at relationshiprevolution.ca. I also released a video today at the Relationship Revolution YouTube station talking about this very specific topic and giving actually the question you should be asking, which I will share later, and also sharing with you a really simple 3-step framework that you can use to identify how far you're willing to go and whether or not you're going to jump in to saving this relationship, because there's a clue right there. Now, before I get into giving a little bit too much around the question you should be asking, I want to take you back. And I do this in my blog and in my video as well, but I kind of build around it a little bit more in the video. But take you back to grade 12 when I learned a very important lesson about how words matter. Okay? This is, it wasn't a lesson I was really appreciative of at that time, but definitely I feel the power of it in my everyday work now. So in grade 12, we're hanging out, we're doing our work. The teacher's already finished his lesson for the day, and we're now doing individual work. And as you need help, you go up naturally and sit down one-on-one to get that mentoring. Well, I had to go to the washroom. And so I waited and I stood in line for my turn. And when I got to his desk, I said, can I go to the washroom? And he looked at me and he's like, well, you have the ability to do so, don't you? And I didn't know what to do in that moment. I'm like, is this a yes? Is this a no? Do I need to ask again? I don't know. I'm confused. Just tell me if I can go. And he kind of saw me feeling a little uncomfortable, uncertain, and starting to like squirm around a bit because I really had to go pee. And he leaned over and he says, I think the question you're wanting to ask is, may I go to the washroom? Now listen, in that moment, I was like, semantics, can, may, like really, you know what I wanted, just let me know if I can go do it. But as I am now working with people and noticing more and more and more how important words are, the difference between can my relationship be saved and do I want to save my relationship is massive. So let's just focus on the word can for a minute. Can means simply that there's a skill set or a knowledge or a process or an ability to do something. And we don't always have that inherently. We don't always have that with us immediately. And sometimes we need to take some training or some courses or read a book in order to develop and elevate our skill set to meet the challenge. And if you've had that, not in communication, maybe not just necessarily, but in anywhere in your life where you have recognized that there's a gap and then you need to learn something in order to be better at it so you can accomplish the task. Can for me is a lot about tasks. It's about developing and honing and becoming better at something in order to accomplish. Now, when it comes to can my relationship be saved, what a lot of people are asking is one, do I have the ability to save it? That's usually what is the underlying tone. Or two, do I have permission to save it? And permission is really big because in our society, we have a lot of people who feel like, well, I would tell my friend to leave, so therefore I must leave. Or I would tell my friend to quit this job because that boss is an a-hole, and so I guess I better quit. We tend to think that we need to do what society's norms would tell you to do, but sometimes that results in bad decisions for us. And so when people are really asking, can my relationship be saved? They're asking for permission or for insight as to whether or not they have the ability to do so. And those are very different questions to ask. The question I want you to ask is, do I want to save this relationship? Because wanting means a desire and a need to fulfill something, to achieve something. Now, I can save a relationship. I have a lot of talk strategies. I've had a lot of conflict training. I've done it in the past many times. I can also walk away from a relationship, which I have also done. Sometimes without regret and sometimes with regret. And it's those moments where I have regret that I'm like, what if I would have learned something new? What if I would have stepped in and said something? Have you ever had a relationship where you've walked away and later you've wondered, what if? If that's you, let me know in the comments below. I think we've all had them. I definitely don't think I'm alone. So when it comes to, let me just look at my notes. I get sidetracked so quickly. I just start talking. Coming back, reining it in, waiting for your responses here. Okay. So the difference between can and want is significant. So when you want something, then you will take the actions and the steps that you need to do to achieve the goal that you want. Does that mean we're always going to get the resolution that we desire? No, that is not a given. That is not a 100% certain outcome. But if you don't try, you will never know if it's possible. That is the difference between can and want. Let's take the other relationships. I can learn a language. I've tried to learn French and Spanish, and I've learned some Pashto when I was in Afghanistan. I've learned sign language. So I have the ability to learn something new and to apply it. But do I always want to use it? I know when I'm around French-speaking people, I'm too shy. I don't want to look embarrassed. And so there's a different motive for me to withhold it. And the same is true in our relationships. If you think of the last time you were out for dinner, which, Lord, I hope it has been recent, because with this recent lockdown, I don't know where you live, but the lockdown here, wow. Let me tell you, it's hurting my head today. I'm feeling more and more disconnected. But let's just go to a time when you were out having a meal with friends and family, and you look around and everybody at the table is on their phone. You're probably already saying it out loud before I got there. Now, you know that this is not very comfortable. You don't appreciate this. It makes you feel devalued, uninteresting, like they don't even care if you're there. And we have a difference between I can say something, do I want to say something? And so sometimes the motivating factor for people is to not say something because they want to keep the peace. You see how our actions are driven by our motivation, whereas another person would be like, put your phones down because I want connection. I want time to talk with you. And that's my motivator for actually speaking up in this moment. So when you identify the want, then the next pieces can unveil themselves. Okay, coming back to my notes. So let's change our question from, can my relationship be saved? And this was my challenge too, is to tell me that it can't be. Because I say 100% yes, any relationship can be saved. And how do I know that? Well, you look at the past history, people have survived financial losses. I certainly know of somebody whose relationship, their spouse has willingly put them in financial harm many times, and they have survived that. They've stayed together. I know people who have survived infidelity, cheating, and while it was rocky and hard, their want and desire to stay together helped overcome all of those trespasses, and they are still together today. So that was financial infidelity. Addictions is another one. I definitely saw this in my own family, in relationships that I know of, where addiction has been a really strong pull and causing a lot of stress and strain, but the desire to make a relationship work was larger than the desire to leave. And so I know a relationship can work if people want it to work. Okay. Now, the piece that just came up recently in some conversations with people is that both people have to want it. And I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to disagree with it to the point that sometimes what happens when we have a relationship that's tense, there's conflict, there's been a lot of strain, it can feel hard to want to do anything. And you can be waiting for somebody else to step in and kind of like open the first door, extend the first olive branch. And that's great, Mrs. B. I'm happy that you disagree with me. I'm going to explain here in a second. So the framework around both people wanting to make it work, the reason I say both don't need to is because sometimes what happens is you need one person to start to open the door, to show a little bit of grace, a little bit of humility, a little bit of, you know what, I'm humbled here. I don't know what I'm doing. Can we work on this? Because until we have this moment where the two souls and the two spirits and the two people can come together in a place that's safe, neither of them are going to want to work on it. So one person has to open that door first to allow the other to then show up into it. That's where the two will want to work together. But in the initial phase, one person can actually create a change by being the person to step in and lead and say, listen, this isn't working. I want to do something different. I want a different outcome for us. And I just want to try something new. Is that okay? That wanting, that commitment to setting your intention to that desire reveals the path to you. So once you set your desire that, yes, this is a relationship I want, then the next thing you need to do, there's 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. The first one is, what am I willing to do? Or am I willing to do anything or something to save this relationship? Because I tell you what, I have wanted to lose weight for a long time, but I wasn't willing to stop snacking at night, right? So what is it you're willing to do? Because you can want things, but if you're not going to take the action, then it won't change. So the first question is, what am I willing to do? Am I going to be the one who humbles and is a little bit more forgiving, or a little bit more willing, a little bit more wanting to try something new to make this relationship work? Because if I'm not willing to, and they're not willing to, nothing will change, right? So somebody has to step in and somebody has to open the door. And that is where I say it only takes one person to want to change a relationship in order to create a movement within it. And once that space is created, then the other can lean in and say, yeah, you know what? This is what I want too. But I didn't know it because I was too busy being angry, too busy being defensive, too busy being disconnected. I hope that makes sense to you. I'm just going to check the comments here before I move on into steps 2 and step 3. Okay, Sim says that reframing is important. I think reframing is probably one of the most powerful tools that we can have in our tool belt when it comes to communication. Reframing is not releasing somebody of their responsibility, but it is a stepping into my own responsibility as to how I can move this relationship to the place I want it. And if it doesn't go there, then at least I know I did everything I could that I knew how to do with the resources and the people around me to actually get what I wanted. And it's okay if it doesn't go that way. I can then rest at night saying, I did my part. And when you're willing, maybe we can revisit. Mrs. B says, I feel both parties need to want it. Yes, fundamentally, initially, one of you has to make a change. That's my stance. That's my belief. That's what I teach people, is that you can change your relationship even if the other person doesn't change. I make that bold claim because I've seen it in my own relationship and in those in who I work with. That, I mean, let's just sidetrack for a little bit. My husband and I were like right fighters. Let me tell you, you get two right fighters in the ring, there ain't nobody backing down. There is nobody apologizing. There is nobody saying they're wrong. There is nobody saying that there is potential. Done, we're over. And we went through that cycle a lot, where we'd live together before we were married. We'd fight, break up. I'd move out. A few months later, we'd get back together. I would move in. And then that cycle would repeat. We would fight. And it was like instant, like, nope, screw you. I'm out of here, pack up, I'm gone by the end of the day. Because we didn't know how to have a conversation. We didn't know how to allow space for both people's lived perspective, their reality to exist, to coexist, while we navigated to find the actual truth. We didn't know how to say, I'm sorry. That's a big one. And so for me, when I showed up different because I wanted something different, I was tired. And this cycle went on for a very long time through our marriage. And I was getting really fatigued because my patterns, my habits, I talked about habits before, in a relationship was when I wasn't getting my way, I would stand up, leave, go to another room and wait for him. But you know what happened? Nothing. He never came. Ever. And it used to drive me crazy. And I used to get more angry at him, and I would feel more just in my right fighter way to be mad at him. But I wasn't doing anything different. I kept doing the same thing over and over, expecting that he would change without me telling him what I needed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would tell him what I needed, but he wasn't going to give it to me because he was a right fighter. And a right fighter is not going to be told what to do. I don't know if you know many of them, but you can't tell them anything. And so when I decided, listen, we could have been divorced. Honestly, we probably should have been divorced a long time. We probably should have never got married, but we were so stubborn that we were going to do it because we just couldn't see our lives without each other. But when I got tired, that's when I decided to change. And it wasn't that either of us didn't want to be in or out. Neither of us really knew where we were at. But I remember sitting with him, and this is a perception check I used. It's actually in my free download for Safe Conversational Starters. The perception check is what saved my marriage. Because I went to my room just like I normally do. We got up. I fought with him. He wasn't doing what I wanted. He wasn't acknowledging what I needed. So I got up, I left, slammed the door, and I waited. And when I'm sitting there, I had this moment and this realization going, he's not coming. Why am I doing this to myself? He's not coming. He never comes. I'm going to sit here and be angry, or I can do something different. Now, at that time, I was teaching communication skills. And so, the perception check just happened to be really close in my mind. And I sat down and I wrote it out, what I want to say. And then I asked him to come in, which begrudgingly, he came into the room. Let me tell you, a right fighter doesn't want to leave their position, right? So he came and he stood at the door. He didn't come into the room. He stood at the door frame because he's still in his power place there. And it took a lot of coaxing for him to come in to the room. And he took a few steps in, and that's where he would stay because he was still angry, very angry. And I said, listen, I want to try something else because at this point, I am tired. I don't want this for our relationship. I want something better. And I kind of got the floor is all yours kind of thing. And so I said, I'm going to read out something, and it's going to feel weird, but I'm going to read this out to you. And so I read out my perception check. And immediately his shoulders went from his ears down a little bit because I wanted something different, and I did the work and I stepped in. He was able to feel like this was a safe place to explore, to have a conversation. I set the stage so that we could have and let me tell you, it was an amazing conversation. We probably talked for an hour, and we understood each other at a deeper level. So this is why I say only one person has to want it in order to make a change. And if that change is then perceived as valuable to the other person, they will lean in. Okay? So way off on a goose chase there. Okay, let me see where we're at here. What about when the other party says, nope, I'm out? You know what? Then they're out. You cannot actually change another person's perspective if they don't want it. Everybody will be at a different place in their relationship, a different place of trust, a different place of need, a different place of want. And if they can't get where you want them to go, then they need to go where they need to go. And sometimes taking a walkabout, taking a step away from a relationship is what people need to realize that, you know what, I think I made a mistake, or I'm okay with this. This is that regret or not regret. I think that's a great question. All right, so let's come back to the step 2 and 3. So we talked about, first of all, the question you should be asking, not can my relationship be saved? Because yes, it can. You can learn how to do it. We all have the ability to learn how to step in and create a space that will create engagement. Instead, you want to ask, do I want to save this relationship? And let me just go back to that for a second. I think you need to ask yourself this a couple of times a day over a span of a couple of weeks to really get a sense of where you are. And I will qualify that here by saying we've all had moments where we're like, holy crap, I'm out of here, right? I'm not sticking around for this crap. And if you make your decision in that moment, you're going to miss out on the good stuff that's coming later, because you've also had those moments where your heart melts and you're like, this is what I want. This is why I'm still here. And it's finding out, do you have more days out of, if you use the 0 to 10 scale, for example, sorry, let me set that up too. 0 is I'm out of here, and 10 is I'm rolling up my sleeves right now as I'm listening to you, Tammy, and I'm trying to figure this out and I'm going to do the work. If you have more days that are 5 out of 10 or greater, then this is a relationship that you want. If you have more days that are less than a 4, then this is probably a relationship you don't want. And this will just help you get clarity as to whether or not you're willing to take the next step, which was answering the question, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to do anything or something to fix this relationship? Now, you don't always have the answers as to what that will be. And so this is where you start to look at external sometimes, or just take an evaluation of what's currently happening. Once you've decided that you are willing to step in and lean in, then we go into step number 2. And step number 2 is all about identifying what your goals are. Actually sit down and write, what does success in this relationship look like for me? Because if you can't name it, you can't get there. You don't know where you're headed if you don't know what success means. And so really sit down and think about, is this about connection? Like, is this about having more time together or quality time together? Is this about values? Are we like misaligned, or do we actually have the same thing we're working for in life? Is this about a vision? You know, am I always talking about having 3 kids and 2 dogs, and he's always saying, no, I don't want any kids? Because if you're working too hard to be in a relationship that doesn't fit, maybe the problem is your expectations on this person. I'm going to say that one again, because expectation management is probably one of the biggest things I help people with in relationships. When you're in a relationship, you need to ask yourself, where are we aligned and where are we misaligned? And if the places you are misaligned are fundamental values, beliefs, desires, and dreams, and you're both charting different paths, then maybe your goals are not going to work out together. They might. I'm just saying, you need to evaluate this part. So how will you define success in this relationship? Will success be that you can have independent lives and just come together and you enjoy learning about each other every night? Or is success going to be that you're on the same path together? So you really need to be clear about what you're looking for in your relationship. Once you have your goals set, then you can move into step number 3. Thanks, Mrs. B. Expectations are important. Absolutely. Okay, lost my train of thought. That happens with me. All right, so we know what we're willing to do. We know what our goals are doing. Step number 3 is to look back in the past to find out what was working before, because we want to double down on that. We want to focus on those strategies and what was not working before, and we want to get rid of that. So in the example with my husband and I, my past behaviors every time we fought and I didn't get my way was to get up, walk away, and hide behind a door and wait for him. That didn't work ever. And so I needed to get rid of that behavior in this relationship if I wanted it to work. And what I did instead, going back to that example, was I wrote down, I want to engage differently. I have this process. I know this system works. I want to try it in this relationship right now while we're kind of still angry at each other. It's a really vulnerable moment, but if you're willing to step into it with me, I'm willing to try because you matter to me. I value this relationship and I want something different. Right? So when you have the answers to the first question, is it a relationship that I want? Then you can start to step into the next 3 questions. I'm going to summarize them here because I know I've talked a lot. But when it's something that you want, question number 1 is, what am I willing to do? Something, anything to fix this relationship. Now, in this stage, you may have to find a who or a what to help you get there, because this is where we look at our skill set. Step number 2, what are my goals? How do I define success in this relationship? And that will be unique in every relationship. Ignore what outside people are telling you, because they're got their best intention and they're thinking about your safety and they're going to say, leave, you got to go, they're a jerk, get out of here. I wouldn't work for that person. You got to find in yourself what you want. Where are your goals? How are they aligned? Where are they misaligned? And are you able to build the bridges that you want? And then step number 3 is, let's take some inventory. What have I been doing in the past? Sometimes this is our habits that come out, which I've talked about before. What was I doing in the past that's not working? Stop that. I have to commit to stopping that right now. In this relationship, that strategy doesn't work. And then what was I doing in the past that did work? I know for me, when I actually involve him in the conversation and the solution planning and like dissecting where the problems are, and I have to be humble to hear that he has a problem with me too, and acknowledge that I'm not perfect. Don't tell anybody. Listen, I'm a Leo, and Leos are, we can be hard-headed. But when I humble myself and I really hear what he's saying, and then we can come together and start to build solutions together, well, that's kind of what you're looking for, right? That is the things that work in this relationship with him is when I involve him. Now, in another relationship, that may not work. They may not want to be involved. They may just want to be told, tell me what to do, where to be, and I'll be there. That's how they will show love and commitment and value. And so that's why every relationship is unique. So let me come back to my comments. I think I may have put this one up already, but the expectations are important. Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to check Instagram here, and I'm not sure if I don't do Instagram very often, so I don't see anything, and I hope I'm not missing any of your comments there by my inability to understand the technology that I'm using. Oh, fun. All right, so if you have any questions, you want to have a conversation now, difference between can and want, or the 3-step framework that I presented, put your comments below. This is your time now. You've got me free. Wow, what an amazing opportunity. I will share with you that if you'd like to read the blog, again, it's at relationshiprevolution.ca, and then just click blog, and there's actually a couple of them there. If you are looking for the safe conversational starters, same website, relationshiprevolution.ca, and you can click on the safe conversation starters to get access to 10 scripted, these are done for you, sayings that you can use when you come across what has been identified in the research as the 10 most offensive behaviors in the workplace, also translate into the home place. Okay, so there's 10 safe ways that you can bring up. Maybe somebody rolls their eyes at you, or they use a lot of sarcasm. How can you address that while still maintaining the relationship? Of course, in that same download, I have the perception check. This is one of the most powerful tools I find, and I teach this one a lot, and it has resulted in amazing turnarounds in relationships. One day I'll tell you about Kate. That's another amazing story. Okay, well, I have chatted your ear off for a half an hour. I don't see any more comments. I want to thank you all, Ying and Mrs. B and Nadani, I hope I said that correctly, and Sim Aware for popping in here and sharing this half an hour with me. So if you are looking for some more training on Thursday, so today, Wednesday, is the free training that I offer to all of my Facebook groups. Thursdays, inside the Relationship Revolution private Facebook group, I do some more training and talking. And tomorrow we're actually doing a Q&A. I've had some questions submitted where you can get your questions answered. We can have live conversation. It should be a lot of fun. That is tomorrow inside the private Facebook group. All right, well, have a great day. Thanks, Mrs. B. You have a great day too. Take care, guys.